Narrator speaking now. And yes, before you ask, I was there. I saw the whole thing unfold with my own 4 eyes, and I still cannot decide whether to file a report or write a comedy novel. My name is Veth-Orun, Senior Intelligence Analyst for the Galactic Observation Council. 37 cycles of service. Decorated twice. Questioned my own sanity at least 400 times, and never, not once in those 37 cycles, did I ever think I would be standing on the bridge of a monitoring vessel, watching a species classified under primitive and unstable respond to a distress beacon that the rest of the galaxy had collectively, unanimously, and very deliberately ignored. Let me back up. The star system designated Corvath 9 had been marked forbidden by the Council roughly 200 cycles before the events I am about to describe. The reason? Simple. The planet, at its center, a scorched, radiation-soaked rock called Melvax Prime, had suffered a catastrophic atmospheric collapse. What remained of its surface was a swirling storm of toxic gas, corrosive winds, and enough electromagnetic interference to fry the navigation systems of any ship foolish enough to get close. A research station had been left behind during the collapse. 43 scientists and support personnel. Council records showed that a rescue mission had been proposed, debated, studied, reviewed by a committee, then reviewed by a second committee to review the findings of the first committee, then tabled for further discussion. By the time the discussion concluded, Melvax Prime had been reclassified from emergency zone to historical tragedy. The 43 were added to a memorial plaque. Very elegant plaque, actually. Beautiful engraving. The distress signal, however, kept broadcasting. Automated. Stubborn. Incredibly annoying. Every ship within range received it on a loop, once every 6 hours, like a cosmic alarm clock nobody wanted to turn off, because doing so required actually going there. And so for 200 cycles, the galaxy listened to the signal, shrugged collectively, and moved on with its business. Then the humans picked it up. Now I should explain something important about humanity at this point in their development. They had been spacefaring for approximately 40 of their years. 40 years. The average Galactic Council member species had been spacefaring for thousands. Humanity was, by every measurable standard, a toddler with a rocket ship. They were also, by every measurable standard, absolutely unhinged. Our monitoring team had been assigned to observe them as part of a routine early civilization watch program, standard protocol. We sat back, we watched, we documented their progress, and we filed reports with titles like Subject Species Exhibits Baffling Risk Tolerance and Recommend Continued Observation with Increased Psychiatric Assessment. My colleague, Bren Sava, a tall, 4-armed analyst from the Dovari Collective, was the one who first flagged the anomaly. She leaned over her console with an expression I had come to recognize over the years. It was the expression she wore when something had gone wrong in a way that was technically fascinating, but personally terrifying. Veth, she said slowly. The humans have received the Melvax 9 signal. Every ship in this sector receives the Melvax 9 signal, I replied, not looking up from my own console. It broadcasts every 6 hours. We have all learned to filter it out. Yes, said Bren Sava. The humans have not filtered it out. I looked up. They are responding to it, she added, in the quiet tone of someone delivering genuinely terrible news. I crossed the bridge in 3 steps and stared at her readout. Sure enough, the human vessel, a mid-range exploration ship registered under the name ISV Calloway, had altered course. Heading, Corvath 9. Speed, maximum. Crew aboard, 22. They know it is a forbidden zone, I said. They received the warning beacon, Bren Sava confirmed, all 7 layers of it, and they are still going. Faster, actually. I think the warning made them go faster. I stood very still for a moment, processing this information with the calm, rational mindset of a trained intelligence professional. Then I said, "Get me everything we have on that ship." The ISV Calloway, as it turned out, was not a military vessel. It was not a heavily armed warship. It was an exploration and survey ship, with a crew of 22 humans, a medical bay, and what our systems identified as an impressive collection of improvised mechanical tools, that had no business being classified as rescue equipment, but apparently were. The commanding officer was listed as Captain Dara Voss, age 39 by human standards, decorated for 3 prior deep space rescues, 2 of which had also been in zones classified as dangerously irradiated. One mission report included a note from her own crew describing her decision-making process as alarming but effective. I read that twice. Her first officer was a man named Tollan Brix, whose service file contained a personal note that read, "We'll follow the captain into a black hole if she asks nicely enough. Possibly even if she does not ask nicely." I read that 3 times. "Veth," said Brensava, pulling me out of my file review. "They are transmitting a response to the distress signal." "What are they saying?" She brought up the audio feed. The voice was calm, steady, almost casual, in the way that only someone either very experienced or very insane could manage. "Melvax Prime Station. This is Captain Dara Voss of the ISV Calloway. We received your distress signal. We are en route. Estimated arrival, 14 hours. Hold tight. We are coming." The bridge of our monitoring vessel went completely silent. Brensava broke the silence first. "The station has been broadcasting automatically for 200 cycles, she said carefully. "There is likely nobody alive to receive that message." "I know," I said. "The humans know too." I looked at the transmission again, at the calm, steady voice of Captain Dara Voss, announcing her arrival to a station that had been silent for 2 centuries, in a system the entire galaxy had agreed was not worth dying for. "I think," I said slowly, "that the humans do not consider that a reason to stop." Brensava was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, very softly, "Should we follow them?" I was already moving toward the navigation console. "Set course for Corvath 9, I said. "And someone please wake up the council. They are going to want to see this. Or possibly they will not want to see this at all. But they are going to see it anyway. 14 hours is a long time to watch humans prepare for something catastrophic. I say catastrophic because that is what every risk model, every atmospheric simulation, every probability chart on our monitoring vessel predicted for the ISV Calloway's approach to Melvax Prime. The numbers were not subtle about it. They practically screamed at us from the display screens, highlighted in red, underlined by the ship's own warning systems, accompanied by automated alerts that our analyst team had stopped acknowledging after the 3rd hour because there were simply too many of them. The humans, meanwhile, were having what appeared to be a strategy meeting. We had full audio and visual access to their ship, courtesy of the passive monitoring array we had attached to their hull 6 months earlier during a routine observation pass. Standard procedure for watched species, completely non-invasive, slightly illegal by their own laws if they ever discovered it, but that was a problem for a different department. Captain Dara Voss stood at the head of a table surrounded by her crew. She had a mug of something hot in one hand and a stylus in the other, and she was drawing diagrams on a portable display with the focused energy of someone who genuinely believed the diagram was going to matter. "The electromagnetic interference will start affecting our navigation systems approximately 40 minutes before we reach the station," she said, tapping the diagram. "So we go manual at that point. Tollan, you trained on manual atmospheric entry." Tollan Brix, her first officer, a broad-shouldered man with an expression of permanent mild amusement, nodded, twice. Both times on purpose. "Good, Mira," she continued, turning to a younger crew member with short dark hair and the alert eyes of someone who had learned to survive by paying very close attention. "The radiation shielding on our hull is rated for Class 4 exposure. Melvax Prime is pushing Class 6 on current readings." Mira, who I had identified from crew records as their chief engineer, Mira Okafor, did not flinch. She simply said, "I can reroute secondary power to the shielding array, boost it to about Class 5.4. 0.4 short of safe," Voss noted. "Correct," said Mira. "Is that workable?" Mira considered this with the calm expression of someone doing math that most species would consider impossible. "We move fast, we limit exposure time, and we do not stop for sightseeing." "Yes." Someone at the far end of the table laughed. Actually laughed. in the middle of a briefing about flying into a radiation storm that was 0.4 levels beyond their own hull's rated tolerance. I turned to Bren Sava. She was staring at the feed with an expression that had moved well past professional concern and was approaching something closer to personal awe. "They know the numbers," I said quietly. "They have calculated the risk." "Yes," she agreed. "And they are laughing." "Yes." I had no response to that. I simply turned back to the screen and watched Captain Dara Voss finish her briefing, answer 6 questions from her crew with the patient clarity of someone who had done this before, and then dismiss everyone with a calm instruction to get 4 hours of sleep before approach. 4 hours of sleep, before flying into a forbidden radiation zone, to rescue people who had been listed as dead for 200 cycles. I filed a mental note to update my report. The previous title, Subject Species Exhibits Baffling Risk Tolerance, no longer felt sufficient. The approach began exactly on schedule. Our monitoring vessel held position at a safe distance, which I will confess was significantly farther back than I would have preferred. Even at this range, Melvax Prime's electromagnetic interference was causing minor fluctuations in our own systems. The planet itself was a dark, churning mass on our visual feed, wrapped in storm clouds that flickered with deep amber lightning, surrounded by a haze of radiation that our instruments measured with quiet alarm. The ISV Calloway flew straight into it. Manual navigation, as promised. Tollan Brix at the controls, from what we could observe, with Captain Voss standing directly behind him, one hand on the back of his chair, eyes on the viewport, entirely silent. The crew at their stations, nobody screaming, which I found remarkable. I myself was experiencing something in my chest cavity that I could only describe as a very sophisticated form of panic, and I was safely outside the danger zone. Hull temperature rising. Mira's voice came through the feed. Shielding holding at 0.4 overrated capacity. Navigation, Voss asked. Flying blind on instruments, Brix replied, with that same mild amusement in his voice, as though flying blind through a Class 6 radiation storm into a forbidden system was a minor inconvenience rather than a statistical death sentence. Instruments are arguing with each other a bit, but I am winning the argument. Obviously, said Voss. Then Mira said, sharply, Captain, I am getting a reading from the station. Silence. Power reading? Voss asked. Small. Emergency backup level. But it is there. Something on that station is still drawing power. The bridge of the Calloway went very quiet. Not the quiet of fear. The quiet of people recalibrating around new information, shifting from a mission framed as recovery to something else entirely. Life signs? Voss asked. Interference is too thick. I cannot confirm from here. We need to get closer. Then we get closer, said Voss. Simple. Immediate. No committee. No review process. No beautiful memorial plaque. I heard Bren Sava exhale sharply beside me. Veth, she said. If there are survivors on that station after 200 cycles, emergency stasis, I said, already seeing where this was going. The council report noted that the station had experimental long-duration stasis units. They were being tested at the time of the collapse. It was considered unlikely that they had activated in time. Unlikely, Bren Sava repeated. Not impossible. Not impossible, I agreed. The Calloway pushed deeper. Hull alarms sounded on their internal feed and were silenced manually, one by Mira Okafor, who appeared to be treating each alarm as a personal challenge rather than a warning. The ship shook, stabilized, shook again. Brix adjusted, corrected, held course with the steady hands of someone who had decided the outcome before the approach began. And then through the storm, on our visual feed we saw it. Melvax Prime Station, still standing, battered beyond recognition, antenna arrays gone, outer hull scorched to bare metal, but structurally intact. A miracle of engineering or stubbornness, and in my experience those two things are often the same. The Calloway docked. We waited. 7 minutes passed, which felt considerably longer than 7 minutes. Then Captain Dara Voss's voice came through the feed, and even through the static and interference, even filtered through 200 cycles of a galaxy that had decided these people were not worth the risk. Her voice was absolutely steady. Calloway, to all stations. We have 11 survivors. Repeat, 11 survivors in functional stasis. We are beginning extraction. Tell whoever needs to know that Melvax Prime Station is no longer a historical tragedy. I sat back in my chair. Bren Sava looked at me. I looked at Bren Sava. Update the council report, I said finally. What should I title it? She asked. I thought about Captain Dara Voss flying into a radiation storm to answer a signal 200 years old. I thought about Tollan Brix winning an argument with a broken navigation system. I thought about Mira Okafor silencing hull alarms like they had personally offended her. I thought about a crew that laughed during a briefing about their own possible deaths, and then went and did the impossible thing anyway. Title it, I said slowly. Humanity does not read forbidden signs. Recommend immediate reclassification. Bren Sava looked at the screen, where the ISV Calloway was already beginning its extraction sequence, steady and purposeful inside a storm the galaxy had declared unsurvivable. Reclassification to what? She asked. I watched the humans work. Figure that out, I said. When we find a category large enough,